Good afternoon, everyone. It is a much more beautiful day for softball than we thought we were going to have today, and so we are delighted to welcome as our guests from Tavares High School. They are the Bulldogs, and they'll be taking on your Wekiva High School Mustangs. Let's meet the teams. We'll begin with our guests from Tavares. And we'll start with their leadoff hitter pitcher. Number 1, Elizabeth Auciello. Batting second, third baseman, number 2, Yasmine Lawrence. Third in the lineup for Tavares, shortstop, number 4, Emerson Lee. A cleanup hitter, and behind the plate at the bottom of each inning, number 11, Sarah White. Batting fifth, second baseman number 6, Alia Lopez. Sixth in the lineup for Tavares, center fielder number 8, Olivia Padilla. Batting seventh, first baseman number 18, Taylor Young. Eighth in the lineup for Tavares, right fielder number 10, Cheyenne Nice. And finally for the Bulldogs, batting ninth, left fielder number 3, Gracie Trejo. And their reserves, number 7, Haley Grace, and number 9, Riley LaFont. And now let's meet your Wekiva High School Mustangs. Starting the leadoff hitter for Wekiva, pitcher, number 1, Destiny Renante. Batting second, third baseman, number 33, Amy Castillo. Third in the lineup for the Mustangs, shortstop, number 5, Yasmine Delgado. Batting fourth and behind the plate at the top of each inning, catcher, number 23, Martrice Boy. In the 5-hole for the Mustangs, first baseman, number 3, Avery Show. In the 6-hole, center fielder, number 13, Mackenzie Eckert. Batting seventh, second baseman number 18, Karina Ramos. Eighth in the lineup for the Mustangs, left fielder number 21, Willie Jones. And finally for the Mustangs, batting ninth, right fielder number 8, Kellyanne Leroy. And the reserves, number 11, Deshaun, number 22, McKinney, number 32, Moody, number 35, Matt Danamis. along with number 15, Gonzalez, number 24, Eubanks, number 34, Thomas. The Mustangs are managed by Coach Nyesha Griffin and assistant coach Taylor McGowan, and the Bulldogs are managed by Tracy Hansen. And now, we ask you to please stand as we honor America with the presentation of colors by the Wekiva High School Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. Tonight's colors are under the command of Cadet Senior Airman Prince Rodriguez carrying the U.S. flag, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Andres Ortiz carrying the Florida State flag, and the Rifle Guards are Cadet Airman Elijah Queen and Cadet Senior Airman Mario Rivera. All of our teachers for participating in Teacher Appreciation Day, as well as the Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps for participating in today's pregame festivities. We're on live streaming today's game on YouTube and the VHS Network. Go to friends and family or back on the Tavares side of town. Also, we're on our radio. To let them know they can tune in and just direct them to our YouTube channel, Private Sports, on the computers, on your mobile device, or you can tune in on the VHS Network. As we enter the top of the first inning, once again, the leadoff hitter for Tavares, pitcher number 1, Elizabeth Alcielo. Castillo to show for the 5-3 ground out, one away for the Bulldogs. Next at the plate, third baseman number 2, Yasmine Delgado. Reante records the swinging strikeout, 2 away for the Bulldogs. Next at the plate, shortstop number 4, Emerson Lee. Next at the plate for Tavares, catcher number 11, Sarah White. Play is made once again from Castillo to show for the 5-3 ground out, and that takes us to the middle of the first inning. No runs on no hits with no Mustangs leaving one on base. The score remains 0-0 at the end of the first half inning. As we enter the bottom of the first inning, the Mustangs lead off with pitcher number 1, Destiny Renante. And welcome back to Mustang Field. This is Mark Barchi, the voice of the Mustangs, joining you for this afternoon's game. Play is made from Aaliyah Lopez to Taylor Young for the 4-3 ground out, 1 away for the Mustangs. Now at the plate for Wekiva, third baseman number 33, Amy Castillo. That's just a foul of the first base line, and that'll put a strike on the board. We have some new folks from Mr. Dickerson's broadcast production class joining us for this afternoon's games, and they are on the headset with me, so you're going to hear a little bit of behind the scenes inside baseball, if you'll pardon the pun, as we get a 6-3 ground out on the throw from Emerson Lee to Taylor Young, 2 away for the Mustangs. Next at the plate for Wekiva, shortstop number 5, Yasmine Delgado. So again, as we work out getting our new folks up to speed, you'll hear me giving some instruction, and you'll hear some of the inside details of what goes on to run the scoreboard at the bottom of your screen and how we select our camera angles and whatnot. So don't be alarmed, and if it's starting to drive you crazy, feel free to mute your television or your cell phone, and we won't think any less of you, we promise. Swing and a miss for strike 2. Or excuse me, for strike 1. I got a 1-1 count now. And as I take you off mute here, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, I'm Hannah Jersey, and I work for Mr. Dickerson, also working with Mr. Barchi.
All right, welcome, Hannah, to the broadcast. That one is out of play for strike 2. So after each pitch, I'm going to select 2 things here. I'm going to either push ball or strike up over here on the stream deck. That's going to change the broadcast, and then I'm also going to push the corresponding button on the All Sport over here, and that's going to change it up there on the big scoreboard. That one is low and outside for ball 2. So now we've got a 2-2 count at the plate here, and I also need to update the pitcher, which I didn't have a chance to do at the beginning of the game. So we're going to go over here to the broadcast settings. As we get a swing and a miss, so that'll remain strike 2. Can't strike out on a foul ball. And I'm going to go over here to the visiting starters on my settings screen. So this is a Google sheet that controls everything on the broadcast other than the actual live score. This controls which teams, which logos, what colors are being used. It controls the names that appear at the bottom of the screen. All that's being managed through here. As we get a short pop-up, should be a fly 4, and it is.
Fly catch is made at second base by Aaliyah Lopez, and that will take us to the end of the first inning. 3 up and 3 down, no runs, no hits, no errors, none left on base, and a quick first inning here at Mustang Field. 0-0 the score at the end of 1.
All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start some music for the crowd here, and as soon as I do that, I am going to mute the audio going into the YouTube broadcast so that we don't get dinged for a copyright violation. Welcome back to Mustang Field. As we enter the top of the second inning, the Bulldogs will begin in the fifth position of the lineup with second baseman number 6, Aaliyah Lopez. All right, so we're going to lose the line score. We're going to push the button for next half inning. That'll jump it up to the top of the second, and it'll also switch it to using Tavares' batters and Wekiva's pitchers instead of the other way around. Then we're going to put the score bug back up. And because I pushed the next batter button too many times in the last half inning, this is showing the wrong person. So meanwhile, we've got a 1-1 count, so we'll update that. And this is Lopez batting, so I'm just going to push next batter until she comes up. There we go.
Oh, that's so cool.
And that hit her in the shin. So that's an automatic.
That was enough.
Well, no, she advances to first. She gets a free base for that. Same effect as a walk. It's not considered a walk though because it's called a hit batsman. So she's going to advance to first, and that also clears the count and goes to next batter.
Next at the plate for the Bulldogs, center fielder number 8, Olivia Padilla.
So each one of the buttons that I have here on this Stream Deck console is linked to a shortcut in vMix. And then, as we get strike one there, and we're also going to get a stolen base. Oh, that reminds me, I can put runners on. So we had a runner on first, and now we have a runner on second. There we go. So each one of these buttons is linked to a shortcut in vMix. Each one of those shortcuts is linked to a script. Each one of those scripts contains some VB.NET code that I wrote that changes the data on the scoreboard at the bottom of the screen. So that is dangerously close to hitting my car. Was a foul ball, so that's going to be strike 2. And when I push the strike button, it runs code, and that code says check to see if there's already 2 strikes. If there are, then turn it into an out and clear the count. If there are not at least 2 strikes, then add 1 to the strikes. Now that was a ball, so I pushed the ball button, and there again it checks to see if there are already fewer than 4 balls, then it'll add a ball, otherwise it'll hold everything where it is. That's going to be in play, and that's probably going to be a hit. Yes, it is. So I'm going to push the hit button. That lights up the H on the scoreboard. Doesn't really do anything, but a lot of people like to keep score themselves. They like to keep paper scorebooks or like to keep a little app. And when I light up the hit light on the scoreboard, that signals to them that the official scorekeeper has recorded a hit. Because sometimes it gets a little bit of a judgment call whether something's a hit or an error. That really wasn't. That was a very clear hit.
As we go to the next batter here in the second inning, Padilla singles to first with a soft lob into right center field. Next will be first base number 18, Taylor Young.
So I'm also going to push the next batter button here, so that'll flip it to the next one on the list. That's going to be a ball and a stolen base. So now we have runners at 2 and 3. Turn off the hit light. So this little symbol down here in the lower right corner tells you who has, or which bases have runners on them. And so that's telling me that I have runners on 2 and 3. What that is those are, each one of those is an image. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different images. One of the images has all black diamonds on it. One of them has a gold diamond in each position. And then I have 2 of them that have 2 gold diamonds. And then I have one of them that have all 3 gold diamonds. And then I can press any of these buttons down here at the bottom as we get, I thought that was ball 4, but apparently I counted wrong, so it must be 3 and 1. And we get a called strike, so that should be a full count. So full count is a shorthand way of saying 3 and 2. That means you have as many balls and strikes as you can possibly have on the scoreboard. That's going out of play.
As long as it didn't hit my car, it doesn't really matter to me where it landed. But you can't strike out on a foul ball. So if you have 2 strikes, you hit a foul ball, you still have 2 strikes. Unless it's caught. So if you foul tip it into the catcher's glove on strike 2, or if you hit a foul ball like outside the first base line or outside the third base line, but still in the park and somebody can catch it from the outfield, then that's an out. That's the only way you can get out on a foul ball strike 2. That's high, and that is probably a passed ball. That was catchable. So that's a run. So we'll push the run button, and that will put 1 up on Tavares' side. That'll also change the line score, which you can't see right now because I don't have it up, but it changes it anyway in the background.
So they have 1 point.
1 run is, yeah, the nomenclature in softball. We still have runners at 2 and 3. And that one was in the dirt. She swung at it anyway, so it doesn't matter if it should have been a ball. If the batter swings at it, it's a strike, no matter where the pitch actually was. And that one was another low swing, so that's strike 2. An 0-2 count, runners at 2 and 3. Strike 3. So you notice as soon as I pushed strike 3, it noticed that there was already 2 strikes, so it reset the count to 0-0 and put 1 out up there for me. This scoreboard controller is not quite that smart. You'll have to clear the count and push 1 out.
Renate records the swinging strikeout for the Mustangs, 1 away for the Bulldogs. Next at the plate, left fielder number 3, Gracie Trejo.
So you notice that also had the effect of advancing the batter. Anytime you have a strikeout with an out, the system is smart enough to know, because I wrote the code into it that says, if you put up a 3rd strike, go ahead and change the batter to the next batter, because we know that has to happen, so I don't make you push the next batter button.
And all of this is on here?
Yes, all of this is programmed into vMix. So if I go up here to shortcuts, you can see here's all of the code, all of the functions that get called when you push those buttons, and each of those is mapped to one of these codes. So for example, here's a simple one. This is the code for ball. So it runs that code every time I push the ball button. Or if I push the strike button, then it runs this code. And that's what checks to see, is it the 3rd strike? If so, then count it as an out, reset the count, advance the batter. Meanwhile, I've lost track of what the count is right now.
I think this is 2nd, and that was 3rd.
Three and 2. Okay, so that's a full count then. Foul ball, so it stays full count. We don't touch anything. Although I realize I've been so busy messing with the scoreboard, I forgot we have a 2nd camera, so I can switch to that anytime we want. And it looks like we have 2 GoPros today. Is that what we got?
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as using the GoPro versus using the traditional Panasonic cameras that we would normally use.
Which is a strike?
Yeah, foul ball would be a strike, except we already had 2 strikes, so nothing. It still counts toward the pitch count, but it's just foul ball on strike 2, so it doesn't change the count at all. So today we are using 2 GoPros. The GoPros have a couple of advantages. First of all, they are much wider angle lens. That's going to be a walk, so that'll be ball 4. So I'm going to push clear count, and I'm also going to push bases loaded. So that'll light up all 3 of my little diamonds down there.
Trejo walks to first,
And now the Bulldogs return to the top of the card with pitcher number 1, Elizabeth Cielo.
So because we now have a new batter, I'm going to push next batter. And there's code that checks to see, am I in position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. If I'm anywhere but position 9, then it will go to the next one. If I'm on position 9, then it resets and goes back to position 1. And that's how, because it's reading all of that out of the Google sheet, which shows up here. So this is what it's reading, because this is just a Google sheet where the batting order is tied to the lineup, which in turn is tied to the roster, and this is where I select what order they're going to be in. And that grazed her helmet. So that counts as a hit batsman, and that's also an automatic run because the bases were loaded. Anytime you get an advanced base, what the base is loaded, the person on third has nowhere to go but home, so that scores a run automatically.
Oh. Softball's a lot different than baseball.
The mechanics of it are pretty similar. The field dimensions are different, obviously. So the field dimensions are smaller. The ball is larger. It is colored neon yellow instead of white. The aerodynamics of the ball are a little different. It will not fly as far or as fast as a baseball will. The pitching mechanics are different. It's an underhanded fast pitch instead of an overhand pitch. But otherwise, oh, and the other thing is there's no leadoffs in softball. So you'll notice that each of those runners are staying right on the bag. They are not leaving, they're not starting to walk toward the next base. In softball, that is mandatory. You will get called out if you leave base early. We need to go to the next batter here, so that's Lawrence. Now, as soon as the pitch is released, then they can leave the bag. But you have to wait for the pitch to be released first before you're allowed to leave the bag. That's different than baseball. Baseball, you are welcome to walk off the base at any time. You can get a head start. It's called a leadoff. You can get a head start toward the next base. But you do so at your own risk, because the moment you take your foot off the base, you can be tagged out. So you decide how much risk you want to take and how fast you think you can run back if they try to throw you out. Softball, you don't do that, and the reason they don't do that in softball is because of the smaller field dimensions. If you allowed the players to lead off, it would be an unfair advantage to the offense. It would be way too easy to steal bases if you were allowed to lead off, because there's not as far to run to get to the next base. That's going out of play. So that's foul ball and strike 2, so nothing happens. For a little variety, I'm going to change the camera angle. So that camera angle is coming to us from the first base line. So if somebody actually does put the ball in play, that would be a good camera angle to grab. But by default, as we get ball 1 here, I'm going to spend most of my time on this shot here, the shot behind the plate, because that is the most useful shot. You can see the entire field. It's not necessarily a great view of the entire field, but you can at least see the whole field from this camera angle. So if in doubt, here now is a good time for me to switch, and then we get the person coming home. So that's a single. I'm going to put up the hit light on the scoreboard here in the ballpark.
Lawrence picks up an RBI single down the third base line. And next at the plate, that was Lee with that, and Sarah White is the next batter.
And you are correct. I've been negligent at putting the runs up on. I put them up on our physical scoreboard, but didn't put them on the score bug at the bottom of the screen. That's going to be out of play. So that's strike 1. So that is 3 runs for Tavares, right? Yeah. The other difference between baseball and softball is that baseball uses an elevated pitcher's mound, It's actually a few inches off the ground. So if you look behind us there, you'll see that the pitcher's mound is actually raised a little bit. That's why hence why it's called the pitcher's mound. Softball, sometimes you'll hear people use the word pitcher's mound anyway, but it's actually just the pitcher's circle because that's level with the rest of the field. That has to do with the fact that softball uses an underhanded pitching motion as opposed to baseball, which uses an overhand. Now that is a wild pitch.
That also counts as a...
It's a ball. So yeah, it's still a ball. It's just an extreme ball. It's not really, if you were scoring this, you actually wouldn't call that a wild pitch because nobody got any bases out of it. The catcher was able to bring it under control in time before anybody was able to take advantage. And because you can only have one player occupying the base at a time, none of the runners had anywhere they could go to take advantage of the fact that there was a wild pitch. That's going to be a hit. Yep. That's going to score 1, 2, 3 runs.
Emerson Lee with a 3 RBI triple. Next to the plate for Tavares. Catcher number 11, Sarah White.
So we'll hit the clear count button to wipe everything back to 0-0. And I'll hit the clear count button over here to do the same on the scoreboard here in the park. That should be a 6-3. No, that is an error. So that's an E6 if you were scoring this on a scorebook. So I'm going to light up the E on the scoreboard, just so anybody who's keeping score in their seats knows that I'm scoring that as an error. I'm also going to push the error button here, which isn't going to look like it did anything, but it only changes the line score. And that also scored a run. And puts a runner on second base. Trying to think, how many hits have they gotten so far?
From the count, maybe like 4.
So that's a passed ball. So difference between a wild pitch and a passed ball is if the catcher with reasonable effort should have been able to stop it. If the pitch touches the dirt before it crosses that white line, it's always a wild pitch. And if it was out of reach that a catcher with reasonable effort could not have possibly stopped that ball, then you call it a wild pitch. If the catcher should have been able to stop it with reasonable effort, but they didn't, then it's a passed ball. The difference is whether it counts against the pitcher's or the batter's statistics. So that's a hit. And a run.
White with the RBI single next to the plate. Second baseman number 6, Leah Lopez.
That's ball 1.
You seem to know a lot about all these sports.
Well, some of them I've been scoring or announcing for a very long time. Football, baseball, softball, basketball. It's going to drop. Yep.
And there goes
Yeah, they're not going to get home on that one because we've got it under control in time.
Lopez splits center and left field for a single and puts runners at 1 and 3. Next at the plate will be first baseman, that was Padilla. Next up is first baseman number 18, Taylor Young.
So yeah, football, basketball, baseball, softball, these are sports that I've been covering since I was a student in high school. So I actually know most of the rules. Some of the other sports, girls lacrosse, wrestling, flag football, those I've had to learn as I go. And I'll be the first to admit that I am not as good of a play-by-play announcer at some of those because even though I may understand the basic mechanics, of the rules of the game. I don't really know anything about the strategy or why the players are doing what they're doing. Pitch away, and did it stay fair? Yes, it did. So that's where you no, that's a hit because it bounced off of third base, but it was inside. You see that white line running from third base to home? If it's inside that line, then it's a hit, and it's fair, and that means the ball's in play and people can score. And in this case, somebody did. If it's outside the line, then it's foul ball. So that one was inside. Now, this is where it gets into discretion. Do I count that as a hit, or do I count it as an error? If my judgment is that Castillo could have and should have fielded that and gotten the out, then I would score it as an E5. So that would be an error against Amy Castillo. And that means that anybody who scores as a result of that is not an earned run for the pitcher. It still counts the same in the scorebook. It's still a run. It's just not an earned run against the pitcher's stats, and instead it counts against Amy's fielding stats. In my opinion, that was not a play that Amy could have or should have made. A reasonably skilled player playing perfectly would not have been able to catch that ball based on where it went. It went straight into the bag and bounced off at an awkward angle. So in my opinion, that was not a play that Amy should have been able to make, and therefore it's a hit. And so what that means is it counts as, that's a positive good thing for the batter statistics, it's a bad thing for the pitcher's statistics, and it's nothing for Amy's statistics. And this is Haley Briones, who is apparently checking into the lineup in place of Cheyenne Nice, so I need to update that on the player card. I was doing this in a hurry because they only gave me the lineup card 2 minutes before we started, so I did not pull in all the subs. Oh. I wasn't paying attention. What happened there?
One pitch, she didn't make it, I don't think.
Well, process of elimination. The runner is still where she was before, and nobody else is on base, so it has to have been an out. I gotta add these two to the lineup. Yeah, they're substituting a batter into the lineup, and that's what I'm trying to do here because they only gave me the lineup 15 seconds before they wanted to start the game, so I didn't take the time to put all the subs into the roster. I only put the starting 9 in. Okay, so 7 went in for 10, and 9 is going in for 3. So I'm going to adjust those, and that will change the lineup. So what you're going to see in a second, this is like a 5 or 10 second delay from Google Sheets because Google Sheets will they'll lock you out if you send more than one request every 5 seconds because they'll think you're spamming them and trying to do something nefarious with your connection to them. So I have it set that it only refreshes every 5 seconds from Google Sheets. So anything I do here is instant. I push the button, it goes right on the scoreboard. Anything that I refresh from Google Sheets usually takes 10 to 15 seconds to catch up on the scorebug. So when I change the names, it changes that a little bit. Now, I'm not sure what this extended conversation is all about because as far as I can tell, all they did was substitute somebody into the lineup, and that's about it. All right, so I got a little intel there. There was some concern being raised by the Wekiva bench that Tavares is batting out of order. I'm not really sure what the basis for that is because number 7 was not in the original lineup and neither was number 9. So those would be presumably substituting into the 8th and 9th positions of the lineup. So that's a called strike. She didn't swing at it, but the umpire made the decision that that was in the strike zone. So that was a wild pitch. That'll be ball 2, and it also moves the runner to third.
How many games, like, rounds are there?
Innings. Innings, yes. Innings. So where you'd call it a quarter in basketball or football, or you call it a period in wrestling, they are referred to as innings in softball and baseball. At the professional level, there are 9 in a regulation game. At the high school level, there are 7. If the game is tied at the end of 7, then you can go into an 8th or a 9th or a 10th inning. But each inning is made up of, you'll hear it called the top of the inning and the bottom of the inning, and that's what this symbol on the score bug means. The up arrow means we're in the top of the second. So that in the top of the inning, the visiting team bats and the home team is fielding, and in the bottom of the inning, the home team bats and the visiting team is fielding. So you're guaranteed to get an equal number of turns. If you get to, let's say, the 7th inning, that's fair because it landed in front of the plate between the first and third base lines and got him at first.
The play is made on the throw from Boyd to Schoen for the 2-3 ground out. Run does not score, and that takes us to the middle of the second inning.
Okay, so this is where we're going to guess at how many hits there were because I lost count. For 9 runs, we're going to say there were probably at least 6 hits. There were a couple walks in there, but I think that most of them were on hits. And 1 Mustang error. So that puts up the line score. So hypothetically speaking, if we got to the middle of the 7th inning and the home team is ahead, then the game would end immediately. Because you don't need to play the bottom of the 7th inning. You already know the home team is ahead and the visiting team has no more opportunities to score. So that's where the game will sometimes end in the middle of an inning instead of at the end if you're in the last inning and the home team is ahead. If the visiting team is ahead, then you have to play all the way to the end of the inning. So we are now at the middle of the second, so I'm going to clear out the scoreboard. We're not going to go to the third yet because we still have to play the bottom of the second inning. I am going to put an advertisement up for those of you who are not subscribed to YouTube Premium. Apologies, we'll see you in a second. Put a little music on here.
Can I maybe, like,
As we enter the bottom of the second inning, the Mustangs begin in the 4th position of their lineup with catcher number 23, Martrice Boyd. Play is made from Cielo to Young for the 1-3 ground out, 1 away for the Mustangs. Next to the plate for Wekiva, first baseman, number 3, Avery Schoen. Fly catch made at second base by Ali Lopez. Two away for the Mustangs. Next at the plate for Wekiva, center fielder number 13, Mackenzie Eckert. Bunt is caught by Sarah White. And that takes us to the end of the second inning. 3 up, 3 down, no runs, no hits, no errors, none left on base. And the score remains 10-0 Bulldogs at the end of 2. As we enter the top of the third inning, the Bulldogs begin in the first position of their lineup with pitcher number 1, Elizabeth Osiello.
Straight to the pitcher. There it is.
Play is made from Renante Vachon for the 1-3 ground out. One away for the Bulldogs. Next to the plate for Tavares, third baseman number 2, Jasmine Lawrence. Next to the plate for the Bulldogs, shortstop number 4, Emerson Lee.
Straight Ball at the plate, and I'm afraid I have no choice but to score an error for that. First one was a legit stolen base, second one not so much.
Osceola is safe at home. Lawrence safe at second on the throw.
So again, I have to charge an error there. Ball at the plate, Lawrence steals third. Swing and a miss. That brings up the 3-1 count. That'll be an E4. Charge against Ramos.
White is safe at first. When he scores next to the plate, center fielder number 8, or excuse me, second baseman number 8, Aleo Lopez. Fly catch made at third base by Amy Castillo. 2 away now for the Bulldogs. Next at the plate for Tavares. Center fielder number 8, Olivia Padilla. Play is made on the throw from Delgado to Schoen for the 6-3 ground out, and that takes us to the middle of the third inning. As we enter the bottom of the third inning, the Mustangs again in the 7th position of their lineup with second baseman number 18, Karina Ramos.
Foul ball for strike one. And a called second strike. Two balls in a row, battles back to a 2-2 count. Headed right to the second baseman, should be a 4-3 ground out, and it is.
Play is made from Aaliyah Lopez to Taylor Young for the 4-3 ground out, one away for the Mustangs. Next to the plate for Wekiva, left fielder number 21, Lily Jones.
Missed by the pitcher, still a chance. And the play is made.
Again, Lopez to Young for the 4-3 ground out, two away now for the Mustangs. Next to the plate for Wekiva, right fielder number 8, Larar.
Pitches away, swing and a miss. That brings up a 1-2 count. Pitching away, swing and a miss for strike three.
That takes us to the end of the third inning. Three up and three down, no runs, no hits, no errors, none left on base, and the score remains 12-0 at the end of 3 innings.
Back in a moment.
As we enter the top of the fourth inning, the Bulldogs will begin in the seventh position of their lineup with first baseman number 18, Taylor Young.
First pitch is in the dirt for ball one. Second pitch also to the dirt, 2-0 count. Renante and Eckert, the two primary go-to pitchers. You know, Eckert was supposed to start against Evans on Tuesday. That game was canceled. Although there was still something to celebrate from that day. Coach Griffin got engaged, which was very exciting. We've got the pictures for that on Instagram, on Wekiva Softball, if you want to catch up with that.
Play is made from Ramos to Schoen for the 4-3 ground out. One away for the Bulldogs. Next at the plate, number 7, Haley Briones.
So again, this was the lineup change that caused so much controversy at the the top of the third inning. Again, I am not privy at the announcer stand to what all took place with the officials and the scorekeepers to make it done properly, but all I can tell you is they had two subs, and they appear to be now in the 8th and 9th positions of the lineup. I'm going to judge that a hit. I think that would have been quite a dive for Castillo to have made.
Next at the plate, number 3, Gracie Trejo.
So this would be a re-entry into the lineup for Trejo. She starts off with a foul ball for strike one. Get a called strike for strike two. That one was just a little bit high. 1-2 count coming up for Trejo. Yeah, it does count. The question is whether you want to count it as a hit or an error. I don't know. I gave her the hit last time. I think I have to give the E6 this time, because if that had been fielded cleanly, then it would have been a fielder's choice at second.
Runners at 1 and 2 now. Next at the plate, the Bulldogs return to the top of the card. Pitcher number 1, Elizabeth Ocielo.
That was almost an error, but presence of mind is there.
Play is made from Amy Castillo to Yasmine Delgado for the 5-6 fielder's choice. 2 away for Tavares. Next at the plate, third baseman number 2, Jasmine Lawrence.
So that's what we called a fielder's choice. So in that case, it's what's called a force out, because you had runners at first and second base. And so when you have runners at first and second and the ball is put in play, they have nowhere to go. The runner at second has no choice but to come to third. The runner at first has no choice but to go to second. And the runner at the plate has no choice but to go to first. Those are force plays. And so as a result of that, Wekiva is at an advantage fielding, because you can touch any of the 3 bases and get an out, because a runner has no choice but to get to that base. So that's a force out. Because there's an opportunity for a force out, the strategy, the smart strategy is, yes, you could have made the play at first, but you'd rather have a runner on first than have a runner on third. You don't want a runner in scoring position because a runner on third can come home. So given the choice, if you can get any of the 3 batters or any of the 3 runners out, you want to get out the one that's coming to third. So that's why when Amy caught a hold of that, Amy Castillo, her first instinct was to throw to first because that would be the normal play that you would make in that situation. But then she remembered in time, wait a minute, I've got a force out opportunity at third. I can turn around and throw that way, get the runner coming from second to third out, and that's a better play. You still end up with another out on the scoreboard, but now you don't have a runner in scoring position on third base. When that happens, it's called a fielder's choice. So the batter does not get credit for a hit for that. Even though the batter was safe at first, just because you're safe at first doesn't mean you get credit for a hit in the scorebook. And that has now officially knocked our GoPro out of whack, so I'm going to switch to the other view, and I'm going to go fix that.
rotate it a little bit counterclockwise. Yeah, that's good. Will it stay if you let go? Let go. That's good. Let's see if we can let go. I like this. Can you go counterclockwise a little bit? Too much. Perfect. Right there.
Yeah, that's perfect, except that I don't want you to have to stay here the whole time holding it.
It just won't stay. I don't know how we did it the first time. Oh, it's on it.
Let's try that. You just tighten the zip line.
Is it good?
Play made at third by Castillo, and that takes us to the middle of the fourth inning. No runs scored on one hit with one Mustang error, leaving 3 on base, and that takes us to the middle of the fourth.
I don't think so.
As we enter the bottom of the fourth inning, the Mustangs will begin in the first position of their lineup with pitcher number 1, Destiny Renante. And we'll start with a 1-1 count on the called strike there. So, as I started to say a minute ago, the mercy rule in softball and baseball, 10 runs in 5 innings or 15 runs in 3. And that's the difference between the home and away scores. That goes straight to the pitcher, and there's the play. Play is made from Auciello to Young on the 1-3 ground out, 1 away for the Mustangs. Next at the plate for Wekiva, third baseman number 33, Amy Castillo. So you hear me say the 1-3 ground out or the 6-3 ground out. That's a shorthand that's based on what you write in the scorebook if you're keeping a traditional paper baseball scorebook. So the positions on the field, 1 is pitcher, 2 is catcher, 3 is first base, 4 is second base, 5 is third base, 6 is shortstop, 7 is left field, 8 is center field, 9 is right field. So the positions are numbered 1 through 9. And so if I say it was a 1-3 ground out, that means that the ball was a ground hit that went to the pitcher, because the pitcher is 1, and the pitcher threw to the first baseman, that's 3, 1-3, and that's where the 1-3 ground out comes from.
That's the ground out, like we were talking about the diamonds on there.
Yeah, well, those are that shows where the runners are. So that shows where Wekiva's players are. When I announce a 1-3 ground out, I'm talking about who from Tavares is making the plays. So this should be a 6-3 ground out, but she didn't get there in time. Yes, she did.
Hey.
Play is made from Emerson Lee to Taylor Young on the 6-3 ground out, 2 away for the Mustangs. Next at the plate for Wekiva, shortstop, number 5, Yasmine Delgado. So you can see on the card here even the position. So that's pitcher, third base, shortstop, catcher, first base, center field, second base, left field, right field. It's one of those things that when you first start scoring baseball, you have to think about it in your head to remember which number goes with which position. But once you've been doing it for a few years, it's like reading a second language. That could be an out, and it is. Foul out catch is made at first by Taylor Young. That takes us to the end of the fourth inning. 3 up, 3 down. No runs, no hits, no errors. None left on base, and the score remains 12-0 at the end of 4.
And then you play the music.
Yep, so we're going to, I don't know, at some point I really need to refresh my playlist. The problem is I really hate all the music from the last few years because I'm apparently an old person now. And so at some point I need to actually download some new music for this playlist. But in the meantime, we'll be back. Avery Schoen makes the fly catch, one away for the Bulldogs. Next to the plate for Tavares, second baseman number 6, Aaliyah Lopez. And we've got an outside strike one. And we've got, let me let you introduce yourself. We've got a new student on the broadcast now. Strike two. Third pitch away. That one they're going to say is a little low and outside, so it'll bring up a 1-2 count. And the second baseman just can't quite get there in time. That's Ramos, and I'll rule that a hit. I think that would have been extraordinary effort for Ramos to get there. Even if she had played that cleanly, it would have been a tough play to make. Next to the plate, center fielder number 8, Olivia Padilla. And that might have been caught stealing if it had been fielded cleanly. But one of the rules of baseball and softball is you cannot be charged with an error for a failure to stop a stolen base. Even if you don't field it cleanly, a stolen base is always a stolen base. It's not an error. Now, on the other hand, if you overthrow the person who was supposed to make the play for the stolen base and then they get yet a second base out of that, then that's an error. This one gets past Ramos, and that one will be a Mustang error. An E4 there. Next to the plate for Tavares, first baseman number 18, Taylor Young. So there I pushed the error button on the scoreboard controller to signal to anybody who's keeping score for their personal reasons in the stands that it's been scored as an error. And then down here, that's a ball, and we're going to try a run down here. That's not going to work. So there I've now, since the runner stole second successfully, I pushed the button there for 2+3. So this row of buttons here controls this little symbol down here in the corner, which of those diamonds are lit up. So in this case, I want 2 and 3 lit up. This is going to go foul.
Are these custom?
Yes. So that's a strike. Now I can change those to say whatever I want by going into this software. So I can make that, I can make each of those buttons say whatever I like.
Oh, this electronic?
It's like
Yeah.
a soundboard kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, like these two at the bottom are actually showing you thumbnails of the cameras. So if I were to switch cameras, I mean, it's hard to see in the sunlight, but those are actually showing a live feed of what's on the cameras.
Oh, that's cool.
What are your opinions so far about the game?
Well, I mean, Tavares obviously is a well-polished team. Wekiva has made a few mental errors. It's just been kind of par for the course this season, and a number of them have turned into runs. That's going to be a foul ball for strike 2. I mean, if you look at the line score, 12 runs on 8 hits with 6 Mustang errors, that kind of tells you all you need to know about how the game is going.
So you're saying there's no way they can come back?
Well,
This far in the
I
game?
mean, it's, It can be done, but at this point, if Wekiva is not careful, Tavares is about to trigger the mercy rule here, because it's 10 runs in 5 innings or 15 runs in 3. So we didn't make the 15 runs in 3, but Wekiva will have to make up at least 3 runs, assuming Tavares does not score any more, as we're going to get a walk here. So now I'm going to push the loaded button. So loaded will light up all 3 diamonds. And we'll say Taylor Young walks to first. Next at the plate, as we have loaded bases, right fielder number 10, Cheyenne Nice. Okay, so she returns to the lineup now. She was substituted out for a couple of innings, and now she's back. So that's why it says Young. Or no, excuse me, not Young. Briones. So Briones is the one who came in for her, so now I need to go back into the broadcast settings and flip that back. And that hits her heel, so that's a hit batsman. Hit batsman automatically advances all the runners. Since the runner at third didn't have anywhere to go, that automatically scores a run. And the bases will still be loaded. Next at the plate, left fielder number 3, Gracie Trejo. So we'll pause here for a little pitchers conference.
What's a pitcher's conference?
Well, that's where the Wekiva is called timeout, so that the pitcher and batter can chat with each other without having to do signals from across the field. So yeah, at this point, if Wekiva were to manage to get 2 more outs without Tavares scoring anything, then Wekiva would have to score a minimum of 4 runs in the bottom of the 5th to keep the game going. If they don't, the game will be over immediately at the end of the 5th inning.
So pretty much after this.
Well, so far, Wekiva has gone 3 up and 3 down in every half inning, I think, except 1, when they had, I think, 1 walk. So Tavares is, I think, 1 walk short of a perfect game at this point. They're throwing a no-hitter. So again, you don't ever want to condemn a game before it's finished, but something dramatically different would have to happen in the bottom of the 5th inning compared to the first 4 innings for this to go any different direction. This should be why is she throwing there? No, that should have been a play at the plate because it was only 2 outs.
They should have anchored that one over there. It would have got her out, right?
Well, she should have thrown it to the home plate. She should have thrown it to the catcher and made the out at home because you had bases loaded. You wanted the out there so it wouldn't have scored the run. Now, if it had been 2 outs, then it doesn't matter because as soon as you get the 3rd out, it doesn't matter who else scores. That goes off the pitcher's shoe, and that's going to score 2 more.
This team's pretty organized.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Tavares, for only having 11 people on their roster, they've got 11 good eggs. RBI, or 2 RBI single is picked up there by Acelio. Next at the plate, 3rd baseman number 2, Yasmine Lawrence.
That was 3 outs.
That takes us to the middle of the 5th inning. 4 runs scored on 2 hits with 1 Mustang error, leaving 2 on base. And the score stands 16-0 at the end of 4.5 innings. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the middle of the 5th inning, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for the 5th inning stretch. So stand up, stretch your legs, and join us now for Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Take me out to the ball game, take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back, for it's root, root, root for the Mustangs. If they don't win, it's a shame, for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. More from Mustang Field in a moment. All right, we'll remove one error from Wekiva there because it turns out that we got the out anyway after I'd already pushed the error button. So, going back, put the bug up. As we enter the bottom of the 5th inning. The Mustangs start in the 4th position of their lineup with catcher number 23, Martrice Boyd.
I think she swing.
Yes, she did. So that would have been a strike regardless of whether it was in the strike zone or not. That's out of play. So out of play, that's a foul ball. She already has 2 strikes, so nothing happens. The count is just the same as it was before. In softball, it's not as important. I mean, it's still important for the sake of the pitcher's statistics to keep up the pitching stats, because all of those count as strikes on the pitching stats. Foul balls are always strikes. Balls that get hit in play are considered strikes as well. Cielo records the strikeout looking. 1 away for the Mustangs. Next to the plate for Wekiva, first baseman, number 3, Avery Schoen. Foul out catch is made at third base by Jasmine Lawrence. 2 away for the Mustangs. Next to the plate for Wekiva, center fielder number 13, Mackenzie Eckert. All right, so at this point, we're facing a potential game over here. If Wekiva gets an out here without scoring at least 7 runs, then it's game over. So we'll start with a ball.
So that was 1.
So yeah, for a pitcher's stats, balls are balls, obviously. Anything else is a strike on the pitcher's stats. If it's hit, if it's an error, if it's a foul ball, anything of that nature counts as a strike toward the pitcher's stats. So in terms of keeping a count of how many pitches a pitcher has thrown, it's still important, but foul balls on strike 2 don't actually affect the batter's stats. They don't affect the count or anything like that. There's a swing and a miss for strike 1. In softball, there are no limits for pitchers. They can keep pitching until the coach takes them out. In baseball, the FHSAA instituted what a lot of other states and amateur leagues had already done, which is pitch count limits. So I don't have them all memorized, but after a certain number of pitches thrown by the same pitcher in the same game, you have to have a certain number of days of rest. So like if you throw more than 45 pitches, then I'm not sure what happened there. Did she get hit?
She hit the ball and hit the gate and went on the floor.
Yeah, but it must have hit her before it hit her bat, if they're calling her a hit batsman. Eckert advances to first. Next at the plate for Wekiva, second baseman number 18, Karina Ramos. Going for the 6-3. There it is. The play is made from Emerson Lee to Taylor Young, and that takes us to the end of the ball game.
Oh, we're done?
16 runs on 9 hits with 6 Mustang errors, and that takes us to the end of the ball game. We'd like to thank everyone for coming out to support your Mustang and Bulldog athletes. We also want to thank those of you who joined us on our YouTube channel, Wekiva Sports. Please make sure you subscribe before you leave. Also, thanks for those of you who tuned in on the NFHS network. We appreciate you all as well. Your next chance to catch the softball team in action is coming up next week at the OCPS Metro West Tournament. We've got 2 away games and 1 home game, and we'll get those posted for you on WekivaMustangs.com so you can follow the Mustangs at the Metro West Tournament next week. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Wekiva Sports, and bookmark WekivaMustangs.com for all of your scores, schedules, and more. We'd like to thank Keith Dickerson and his team at Wekiva TV Broadcast Production for bringing you the video aspects of today's ball game. We also remind you to follow us on our social media channels for live real-time updates about many of our home athletic events, as well as news and information about our athletes and alumni. Congratulations to Coach Griffin, who got engaged earlier this week. Can't let the game end without passing our congratulations to her. We'll see you next week for the OCPS Metro West Tournament. Those of you in the ballpark, please drive carefully and arrive home safely. Those of you tuning in online, thanks for joining us today. I'm Mark Archie, Sports Information Director, and the voice of the Mustangs. This has been a presentation of Wekiva High School Athletics in association with Orange Technical College, both proud part of Orange County Public Schools. Good night from Mustangs.